Hello, welcome to the Azure Kubernetes deployment series. In this series, we are going to learn how to deploy containerized application into Azure managed Kubernetes by using command line tools as well as DevOps pipeline. So let's go to the GitHub repository where we'll follow the steps we need for deploying this application that we are going to follow. So in this lab, we are going to deploy 4 microservices: the order service, product service, storefront, and the order queue, that is Rabbit message queue server. Out of this 4 containerized application, we have only the source code for order service, product service, and storefront, but the Rabbit MQ message queue, uh, we directly refer the images from Microsoft container. So we are not going to build the Docker image and push it into the Azure Container Registry. So here we can follow the lab by using my public GitHub repository. For this lab, the prerequisites are as follows. We should have a Azure subscription. VS Code should be installed. We have a GitHub repository, and we need to install the Azure CLI, kubectl, and also the Bicep and Docker Desktop for containerizing the application and pushing into the Azure Container Registry. So we need to follow these 5 steps here. The first step is to provision the infrastructure, and in that we need to deploy the Azure Kubernetes as well as the Azure Container Registry, where we are going to store the Docker images. The next step is we will be building the containerized application, I mean the Docker images, and we'll push it into the Azure Container Registry. The third step is to deploy the application into the cluster by using the Kubernetes manifest files and the kubectl command line tool. The next step is to validate and access the application, and at the last, we need to clean up the resources. So in order to follow this, let's go through the steps that we require here. So in the beginning, we're going to log into our Azure Cloud, AC login. So it will ask for the credential, and you can just select your credential and use it. It will show the different subscriptions are available in that account, but I have only one subscription here, so it will take automatically the default one. But if you have multiple subscription, in that case we can select the particular, or you can set that particular subscription by using HE account set subscription, the subscription ID. Next, we can see if any Azure resources are available in that subscription by using this command. Yeah, you don't have any subscription, I mean resources available in that subscription. Now we are going to deploy the resources in the Azure cloud. So for that, in the infra folder in my repository, we'll see under Azure CLI folder there is a script file. So in that file, we are going to create a resource group, the container registry, and also the AKS cluster. So in order to allow the cluster to pull the images from the ACR in that AKS cluster, while creating this, we are attaching the Azure container registry. So it will able to pull that images into AKS cluster. So in order to provision these resources, we need to run this script. For that, we can use this command here. So here I just mentioned the path where this script is available, that is under Infra, Azure CLI. It will take some time to provision both the ACR and Azure Kubernetes. So once that is done, then we can log in. We can log into the cluster by using the AKS get credential command, where you can mention the resource group and the cluster name. The next step, once that AKS and ACR is created and we have logged in into the AKS cluster, the next step what we can follow is to log into the Azure Container Registry, and then we need to build and push the container, I mean the Docker images into ACR. So while it is creating the resources, let's go to the manifest file. In the manifest file, uh, we have the Kubernetes deployment as well as the service files. So the deployment file, it, here we mentioned the name of the Docker image. So this Docker image, it will pull the image from the ACR. So if we see the convention here, it shows the name of the ACR and the name of the image and the version or the tag. Similarly, for product deployment, we have mentioned the name of the Docker image that it will refer from the Azure Container Registry. For storefront deployment as well, here we have mentioned the image name. But for RabbitMQ, here we are not creating the image by ourselves. We are simply referring it from the Microsoft Container Registry, and this is the image name, that is RabbitMQ server 3.13. And for the services, for each of the services, it is kind of cluster IP. So cluster IP service, it is basically used whenever there is a communication required in the cluster itself. I mean, uh, cluster IP service usually communicate with other Kubernetes object within the cluster. So the order service, product service, and RabbitMQ service, all these of type cluster IP, but the front end storefront deployment service, it is of type public. I mean, it has a load balancer type, so that it will assign a uh, public IP that is exposed to the internet or the public network to access the application. Okay, so next, if you go to the next step here, once the once the ACR and the AKS is ready, then you can create the Docker images and we'll post it to the ACR. And uh, we have already, I have already created this Kubernetes manifest files. Then in order to deploy these uh, Docker images into the cluster, we have to run this manifest file by using the kubectl command line tool. For that, we need to log into our AKS cluster. Okay, so I think the container registry is already created. We can see this is our resource group. It got created, and within this resource group, we should see the container registry. Maybe it is taking more time. Yeah, you can see here we have the content registry, and under the repository we don't have any images. Now we can log into this ACR and we'll create the Docker images and push it into the ACR. Okay, so for that, let's follow the steps. Let's create this variable here, the name of the ACR, then log into the ACR using this command. It's taking a bit time. Yeah, login succeeded. Now, in order to create the Docker images, you can see in our application folder we have three application: order service, product service, and storefront. So each of these application have a Docker file. So this Docker file basically used to create the Dockerized application or the container. So for that, we need to run this command line. So we can go to this Docker command we need to run to build and create the Docker image for order service. It will take few minutes to create the Docker image. So once the Docker image is created, then we can with tag it with a version to deploy into the Azure Container Registry. So in order to verify whether the images are created or not, we can simply use Docker images command. So yeah, the order image is created with tag latest. So we can use this existing Docker image and tag it into the Azure Container Registry with version v1. So the next step we'll tag it to push it into the ACR. Now we'll push this image to ACR. It will take some time to push this Docker image into ACR. After that, again we'll build this product service, and also similarly we have to push into the Docker container registry. I mean ACR container registry. Let's build this. So now if we refresh our repository, we can see the order image is already added to the Azure container registry. Okay, it is done. Now again we'll tag it with the Azure container registry. That is done. Now again we're going to push it into the container registry. Now let's see the order. Yeah, the product is now available. Now we'll build the storefront image. Once that is done, we can tag it to the ACR. Now let's push it to the Azure container registry. If you see, we have also the AKS cluster. We can see here. If we go to this, we can see our AKS cluster, and under the workload. So these are all the Azure deployments, but there is no deployments that explicitly we have done to this. So in order to do that, we have to run kubectl command tool to deploy our containers into the AKS cluster. So before do that, we have to log into the AKS cluster. So for that, we can use this. We have to this. We can use these variables. Then using AKS get credential, we can log into our AKS cluster. So we can use the kubectl tool to 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 uh, log into the communicate with the Azure cluster. So now you can use kubectl get node. So it will display, yeah, we are able to communicate, and it shows the node of the cluster. In order to, we can use a shortcut like we can use ls k equal to kubectl. So we can use k for kubectl for shortcut. Now if we type k get pod, so it shows no resources found in default namespace. So in the default namespace there is no resources. So now we can verify that in our container registry all the images are available: order, product, and storefront, and the version is v1. So this we have already mentioned in our deployment, pod deployment for each of the services. You can see this is the name of the container registry. You can verify this. This is the name of our container registry, and this is the name of the image and the version. So that we have mentioned here already. But for the rabbit mq message queue, we have um, this image is not available in the ACR. We have not posted it. We are directly referring it from the Microsoft content registry. Okay, so now in order to deploy this, we need to use the kubectl command. So this is kubectl apply command, and here all the manifest files are there. For each of the service there is a deployment and service YAML file, and we have also a config YAML file. So we can go through this in detail, how this deployment file for each of the service or the application is created, and how what is the type of these services, and how the pod or the deployment referring to the uh, Docker images from the ACR. So that you can go through this. Okay. Now, in order to provision this, we can use this command. So k is nothing for kubectl. So if we run this, it will deploy all these manifest files into AKS cluster. So now, if we'll type k get pod, it will display all the pods that is created. So you can see here we have order service, we have product service, rabbit message queue, and storefront. But we can see here the order service still is not ready because there is a init service. I mean, init containers. So the init containers, there is another container running using busybox, and that is validating whether the RabbitMQ message queue is ready for service. So once that is available, then it will notify the order service to be ready. So we can check again. Still, it is waiting. So it may require some few seconds more to be updated. Yeah. So, and if you see, we have also deployed 4 services here. We can get those. Okay, we can get this. Okay, so if we type kubectl get service, then you can see here we have these 4 services we have created, and you can see all these 3 services of type cluster IP. But storefront is the load balancer that is exposed to the public, and this is the public IP. Okay, so if now we can try call of this, whether it is available or not. Yeah, now it is ready, and it is shows the contours of pet store. This is our application. Similarly, you can also browse it. If can to validate whether our order service is available or not. It is by the time it is already available. That's why it is showing in this. I mean, it is able to access. We are able to call this. So if we type it again, get pod, we can see all the services are now running and ready. So even if we can go to the browser, and we can access this by using the public IP. So you can see the application. Yeah, this is the application. Now we are able to access, and if we see here, we can add to cart few things. Okay, so we have 3 cards, and here proceed to checkout. Okay, so this is not a complete application. This is this sample basically I have still from the Microsoft, and just for to just for to demo how microservices are created and deployed using the different tools like in Docker Desktop and kubectl, etc. And how we deployed using it into the Azure cloud managed Kubernetes. Okay, so if you go to the repository, you can just follow the steps mentioned here, and you can follow and you can create this application. So before to that, you have to clone this repository and try to build the Docker images and push it to ACR and using kubectl deploy into the AKS cluster. Yeah. So if one thing I want to show you, if you go to the AKS cluster now and refresh it, yeah, so you can see here we have these are the services, other service, product service, and store service. Okay, and we can here it is deployed in the default namespace. Okay, and here if you go under this, then you can see these are our containers running. Okay, the pods. So here we can see this. Okay, so this way we can you can able to deploy and dockerized application into Azure managed Kubernetes using command line tools. So next lab, we will see how we can automate everything, what we have done using the command line tools today, that we are going to automate using Azure DevOps pipeline. So till then, bye bye. See you. Thank you.